What's the best asset to invest in? Today I'm going to give you the pros and cons of the 4 major property types. If this is the first time you're on this channel, thank you so much for stopping by. My name is Tim Diesel. I'm a commercial real estate consultant. This channel is designed to give you tips and strategies in your investing business, or if you're a broker, this will definitely give your clients tips in their business to help them grow as well. All right, let's start with retail buildings and retail properties in general. The biggest advantage retail has over any other asset class is you can increase the value quickly. I mean real fast. Like nothing else I've seen in office, warehouse, whatever else. If you have a 10,000 square foot building and for argument's sake, let's say 30% of the building is vacant and you have a tenant that wants to occupy 2,000 square feet, well, for simple math here, let's just say they're paying $20,000 a year. And at $20,000 a year, they're gonna do a 5-year lease. So a 5-year lease, that's $100,000 for the value of that lease. Now, all you have to do is figure out what the cap rate is for your market, your area, and add that to the value of the building. That is huge. You can't do that in multifamily, and it's very tough to do that in office because unless you have the entire office building. But retail, the biggest advantage is you can really increase the value quickly, and the management is so much easier because in a retail building, usually the tenants are responsible for just about anything. So you can increase the value real quick and the management is a lot stress-free. All right, here's the bad news when it comes to retail. If you're in a bad location, demand is just shot down the tubes. It's very, very difficult to find tenants if you're in a bad location. So a lot of times this happens where somebody owns a building for maybe 5-10 years and all of a sudden the city wants to put a street through there. Well, that just ruined your entire business model, and it's very difficult to get rid of the property to someone else unless it's an owner or user. So the biggest disadvantage I think in retail is location. If you're in a bad location, no other asset class gets affected as bad as retail. Everything else, it can be okay, because if you have an office building, you don't need to be in the center of everything. And if you have an industrial building, usually you don't want to be in the center of town anyway. With a retail property, if you're in a bad location, you're going to be hurt real bad. So whenever you're buying or you're looking to buy, first thing is the most important thing is location more than anything else you're looking at. The best part of multifamily properties, financing and more tenants. In other words, if any bank you go to usually, or a credit union, they love multifamily properties. And a lot of times that's kind of their preferred go-to. A lot of hedge fund investment groups, if you're ever doing syndications, this is right up their alley. This part is fantastic. Everybody loves multifamily. Now, the tenant pool is so much better because you have a lot of users. You have a lot of different tenants to choose from. The inventory usually gets used up quickly, right? It's not likely you're gonna go 6-7 months with a vacancy unless maybe the unit is not clean or needs to be rehabbed or something. Most of the time it's quick turnaround and you can fill these properties up very quickly. Financing is easy as far as partners, banks, hedge funds, whatever it is wants to get involved. So this is the great part of multifamily properties. All right, now the not so good news. This is the thing that I dislike more than anything about multifamily properties is the management. Very management intensive. You really got to be on it. That's the part that really a lot of investors are not as attracted to this asset class because of this. If it's big, it has to be big first off for you to actually have a management company in place. Anything less than, if you have an 8-unit, 9-unit building, it's very hard to get a property manager in there and still make a profit, right? The other thing is you have to keep your tenants in there a year, 2, 3 years. They have to be rollover all the time. Now, if you're managing it yourself, well, if you're managing a 50 or a 60 unit building without a management company, that's pretty tough, unless you are the management company. So management is really the biggest thing. This could really ruin the entire investment. If you don't have a strong management team in place, this could be very, very bad. So management would be the worst thing about this asset class. All right, it's no secret that office buildings are not my personal favorite asset of choice, but they do have a lot of good things going for them. The biggest thing office has going for it is you have to be very selective with your tenants. If you are, it could be very, very lucrative for you. So on an office building, really, if you get a lawyer or a doctor or somebody in there that has just a little bit enough traffic, but not so much, and you can work out as close to a triple net lease as possible, that could be great. They'll be in there for a long time. They'll really take care of the place because they have an image to uphold, so you don't have to worry about it getting run down. If it's an attorney's office or a CPA or something like that, it's going to look really, really good. The issue with that is you have to find the right tenant. So you just can't let a startup company come in there because you need financials and you don't know how long they'll stay around. But if you get the right tenant in there, it could be very good. So that's why I say it's a pro. It just sounds like a con, but it really isn't. You want to attract the right kind of tenant, and that'll make this process so much easier for you. The biggest con about offices is in today's day and age, most companies don't need one. You can work from home. A lot of companies work from home now, and it makes having an office kind of a nuisance. So that would be the biggest disadvantage. If you have a vacancy, you can be vacant for a very long time just because of the right business and because you're being selective with your tenants. You just can't let anybody go into your office building. So if it's a really big franchise tenant, most of the time they're going to cut the office properties first, right? Because they're going to keep their retail locations. That's what's making them money. Their office staff and their salaried employees, most of the time they're the first to go, unfortunately. So office, from what I've noticed in my experience, they cut those out, and that's going to be the biggest disadvantage. You really don't need an office building. There's nothing in an office that you can't do in your own house, but unless you have like a sales force or somewhere where everybody has to have a call center, that's different. But for the most part, that's the biggest weakness office has. All right, industrial properties. The best thing about industrial properties is absolute net deals. The owner really doesn't have to do anything. The tenant is responsible for everything. I mean anything, everything, that all falls on the tenant, which is fantastic. Now, it could be a distribution plant, whatever's there, warehouse, anything like that. That's not typical that you're going to get a 20-year deal, but you could get a 5, 10, 15. Those are the good things. And most of the time, what I've seen is if you get a 3-year or 5-year deal, a lot of times they'll stay there a lot longer, and they'll still be responsible for just about anything they come up with, anything they destroy. So that's the beauty of having a good lease in an industrial property. It's so much easier to work with. Absolute net deals are also very easy to finance because the bank is not looking at you, they're looking at the tenant. So that's who's being qualified in this case. So if you have a nice, good, strong lease in place, there's 5 years and it's an absolute deal, they know it's pretty solid. So your credit, your financials, they really don't take too much into effect here. They're basing everything off of that tenant, and that's beautiful. All right, the not so great news about industrial properties. They can be very difficult to fill. So if you have a distribution center of whatever company and they leave, or a manufacturing facility, it's going to be really tough to get another one in there. So that could be a problem. Now, the other thing is increasing the value. If a company's been in there for 5 or 10 or 15 years, your value has been the same. So you've had stunted growth. That could be a real problem for an investor because sometimes you want the safety and security, but you're sacrificing the appreciation. So that's the part that's not so good, where they're great to have an absolute net deal. It's not so great if they end up staying there for a terribly long time because you can't really raise rents as fast once you have a lease, right? You have an incremental rise. And so that's the unfortunate part. All right, I hope that was helpful. I didn't do special use, mobile homes, anything like that, hotels. If that's something you're really interested in, go ahead, reach out to me. I'll definitely get that covered for you. But most of the time, the questions I get is what's better between a retail or an office building or a multifamily and an industrial property. So that's what I really wanted to cover today. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Please ask me any questions. I'd love to answer them for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it.